It's a key element of biblical prophecy involving the return of Jesus Christ to the earth, building a third temple in Jerusalem. Now there's a movement in Israel to make it happen.
The temples of Jerusalem has been a focal point for the monotheistic Abrahamic religions after a history of turmoil that saw the demolition of two sacred Jewish temples in Jerusalem. The third temple is finally being built to seal the prophecies that lie in the Torah. However, this development comes at a price. From political and religious tensions in the region to reports of strange events, these question the restoration of the temple itself. What is the current update on the construction of the third temple, and how far have they gone towards its completion? We will answer all these and also clarify the mysteries surrounding the construction of the third temple by lending the viewer an understanding of the history and politics at play in this unfolding saga. The third temple is a hypothetical edifice held in high reverence by the Jews. It holds the key to the restoration and renewal of hope for a greater Israel. The building of the temple will mark the succession of the two fallen temples that preceded it, and continue to symbolize holiness and sanctity for the Jews. Even though it hasn't been built yet, the idea and wish for the third temple are really important in Judaism, especially in Orthodox Judaism. People see it as the most special place for Jewish worship, with the belief rooted in the Hebrew Bible, where Jewish prophets emphasized its construction before or during the Messianic Age. The building of the third temple is also a significant element in certain Christian perspectives about the end times. However, the building of the third temple may not be as easy as it sounds for some political and religious reasons. It is important to note that the third temple cannot be erected just anywhere. It has to be situated in the original spot where the preceding temples once stood, the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is deemed a sacred location in Jerusalem, a city revered for its holiness by all three monotheistic and Abrahamic religions. According to some biblical historians, it is believed to be the location where Abraham chose an altar to sacrifice his son Isaac. Today, two significant Islamic sites stand directly atop the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and an Islamic shrine, the Dome of the Rock. These present a multifaceted problem. In recent times, the mosque, the shrine, and the entire plaza have become a major source of tension in the Arab-Israeli conflict. In the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel took control of East Jerusalem and its old city from Jordan. While Israel annexed East Jerusalem, the plaza remained under the supervision of an Islamic trust, Way Kiev, managed by the Hashemite dynasty in Jordan. Over the following decades, issues such as restrictions on Palestinian Muslims' access, Israeli excavations nearby, and evictions of Palestinians in surrounding areas have heightened Muslim concerns about the fate of this holy site. And although Israel has made no direct claims and is yet to divulge any intent of demolition, many Israelis believe the structures will eventually be demolished, as they believe it to be God's plan. Also, the discourse surrounding the conditions and beliefs associated with the construction of the Third Temple reveals a spectrum of perspectives within Jewish tradition. Historically, the assumption persisted that the destruction of the Dome of the Rock was a prerequisite for the temple's rebuilding. However, a divergence in thought was presented by a scholar named Frankel in 2007. Frankel argued that Jewish doctrine highlights the pivotal role of a prophet, endowed with extraordinary authority, to designate the temple's location independently of existing traditions. This could entail a peaceful coexistence with other religious structures on the Temple Mount. Opposition to such an initiative comes from both Muslims and Jews. While the Islamic movement in Israel asserts that the decision rests with the Mahdi, the Muslim Messiah equivalent, Baruch ben Yosef, chairman of the movement to restore the temple, contends that the temple must stand where the Dome of the Rock currently exists and rejects the necessity of a prophet's involvement. The debate not only involves religious nuances, but also political and cultural dimensions, with various factions holding firm to their perspectives. With these tensions surrounding the proposition of the Third Temple, it is important to look at the subject from a lens of religious and political history. Why can't the Third Temple just be built like any other structure, and why is it the Third Temple? After its first construction by the biblical King Solomon, the Temple of Jerusalem had been rebuilt a number of times, and it's almost as if some forces are against the existence of the temple. Let's take a brief journey back in time through the timeline of the Temple of Jerusalem. King Solomon of Israel constructed the initial Temple of Jerusalem around 950 BC on the traditional grounds of Mount Moriah, a site chosen by his father, King David, because of its religious significance. It was linked to where Abraham had prepared to sacrifice Isaac, erecting an altar to the Lord there 40 years prior. Solomon's temple, crafted from stone and timber with a white marble exterior and a gold-plated facade, aimed to serve as a fitting sanctuary for the Ark of the Covenant, housing the stone tablets inscribed with the 10 Commandments. Standing for approximately 360 years, Solomon's temple met its demise at the hands of invading Babylonians, who not only destroyed it, but also led most Jews into exile. The Ark of the Covenant was concealed in an underground chamber, its ultimate fate remaining unknown. 50 years later, in 371 BCE, the Babylonians were conquered by the Persians with Cyrus as their king, who allowed the Jews to return to Israel and rebuild the temple. The reconstruction of the temple was completed in 515 BC. The temple known in Jesus' time was reconstructed by Herod the Great, with work commencing around 20 BC. Despite a previous reconstruction, Herod's temple is still referred to in Jewish tradition as the Second Temple. The Second Temple was in the crosshairs of numerous existential threats at the hands of the Greeks and Romans, as well as through civil fighting amongst the Jews. In 70 CE, the Romans concluded the turbulent era of the Second Commonwealth, marked by internal strife among various Jewish factions. The Zealots, believing in their ability to defeat the Romans, ignited a rebellion that tragically resulted in the loss of the country, the widespread killing of tens of thousands of Jews, and the devastating destruction of the temple. In the aftermath of the temple's destruction, the years that followed were exceedingly challenging. Despite the presence of a Jewish population in Israel, they faced relentless attacks and persecution from the Romans. The Romans continued their persecution of the Jews and systematically destroyed the Jewish presence in Israel. The history of the temple shows it has been a point of political turmoil before the birth of Jesus, and it is almost unsurprising that the proposition of the Third Temple comes with its own baggage of a mix of religious and political conflict, heightened by the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. After the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, the gradual occupation of the neighboring Palestinian territories by Israeli settlers led to the displacement of more than 700,000 Palestinians from their homes, and this has caused an upheaval in the region, with an outcry Palestinians claiming the unrightful occupation of Jews has cost them their homeland. The subsequent annexation of Jerusalem in 1967 increased the already heightened tensions in the area, and the need for peace was no longer debatable. In the year 2000, at the residence of the US President Camp David in Washington, D.C., a meeting took place involving three leaders, Bill Clinton, Yasser Arafat, and Ehud Barak. Arafat, the leader of the Palestinians, was offered a solution to the Palestinian issue, a candidate deal that had been proposed by the Americans before. This deal aimed to settle relations with Egypt, but the key point was a political solution to the Palestinian problem. During the meeting, Arafat was presented with a controversial proposal. He was offered the construction of the Third Temple under the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a site sacred to Muslims. In exchange, the Palestinians were promised recognition of their statehood, the return of refugees, compensation for damages, and the establishment of clear borders. However, the catch was the construction of the Jewish temple under the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a proposal Arafat vehemently rejected. The proposed location for the Third Temple was beneath the foundation of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and Arafat was asked not to disturb the mosque itself. The offer, despite its potential benefits for the Palestinian people, was refused by Arafat, who saw the Al-Aqsa Mosque as a religious symbol of immense value to the entire Islamic world. He argued that he couldn't make decisions about a religious site that was not exclusively Palestinian property. The rejection of the deal led to speculation about Arafat's motives. Some believed he refused because he didn't want to hand over a significant political achievement to Barak, who was leaving office. Others saw it as a principled stand to protect the religious sanctity of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, considering it a symbol of Islam. The consequences of Arafat's decision were significant. The rejection of the deal raised questions about the genuine interest of Israel and the United States in achieving a peaceful resolution. It also highlighted the complexities of the Middle East conflict, where religious, political, and historical factors intertwine. The discussion further delves into the motivations behind the proposed deal, suggesting that it was not only about reaching a resolution, but also had geopolitical implications. The idea of the United States and Israel being interested in such an agreement for their own strategic reasons is brought into focus. Speculations from experts on the issue suggested the desire of the US government to control the region, perhaps through a pipeline from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, could be an underlying motive. Also, the potential religious implications of building the Third Temple are well known to the Jews, Muslims, and Christians, especially the idea of the arrival of the Antichrist, adding a layer of complexity to the situation, bringing religious beliefs into the geopolitical landscape. Should the Third Temple be rebuilt, despite the strange events unfolding? Once Napoleon observed Jews mourning on Tisha B'Av in Vilnius, he was surprised by their resolve and remarked, "A nation that cries and fasts for over 2,000 years for their land and temple will surely be rewarded with both." Since the temple was a significant privilege for the Jewish people, it also carried with it a number of substantial responsibilities. These responsibilities mandated that the Jews should serve God with a heightened sense of devotion to serving God, and also be a lighthouse for all other nations of the world, guiding them on the right path. Unfortunately, when the Jewish people fell short of these responsibilities, the consequence was the loss of the temple. Today, the Jewish people are actively working towards a level of merit that would allow them to have their custodianship of the temple restored once again. According to the Midrash, the Third Temple has already been built in heaven and is awaiting the necessary preparations on earth. The renowned medieval philosopher Maimonides, in his Code of Jewish Law, contended that each generation of Jews had an obligation to rebuild the temple under certain conditions. If its site was retaken, if a leader descended from David could be identified, and if the enemies of Judaism were vanquished. However, since Maimonides' era, many rabbis have pessimistically concluded that the restoration of the temple would likely have to await the arrival of the Messiah. Additionally, it is believed that in every generation, there is an individual with the potential to assume the role of the Messiah. The Jews have been longing for the restoration of their temple and have started taking significant strides towards sating this desire. Efforts to build the Third Temple have been fervently pursued by various organizations, notably the Temple Institute and the Third Temple Academy. The Temple Institute, a key player in this endeavor, has diligently crafted over 60 sacred temple vessels and priestly garments. The Institute is also actively involved in training a new generation of Levitical priests, known as the Kohanim. Nearly a century ago, the establishment of Torah Kohanim, a yeshiva for Levite training, marks a significant historical milestone. Simultaneously, the Third Temple Academy, founded in 2009, focuses on training priests and Levites, with a notable event being the reenactment of the Korban Pesach in 2015, a practice unseen for 2 millennia. Central to the construction is the quest for a ritually pure red heifer, crucial for purification purposes. In order to hasten their long-awaited redemption, the Boneh Israel imported 5 red heifers from the United States last year. The intention is to sacrifice them and mix the ashes with water, creating a solution used to purify individuals before ascending to the Third Temple. These rare cows play a crucial role, as the inability to perform this ritual is a factor in the opposition from Israeli rabbinical authorities to Jewish visits to the Temple Mount. The animal's presence is seen as a messianic sign. The heifers undergo thorough inspection by veterinarians and rabbis to ensure that every single hair is red, and they are carefully nurtured and preserved for the opportune moment. Also, attempts to lay out the cornerstones for the new temple have been underway, but have been met with challenges. One of which is the thwarted attempts by the group, the Temple Mount Faithful, to lay cornerstones for the new temple on the Temple Mount, led by Gershon Salomon, who encountered opposition from Israeli authorities. Despite these hurdles, these organizations persist in their dedicated pursuit of realizing the vision of the Third Temple. However, as the momentum for a new and restored Third Temple is building rapidly and blowing on full steam ahead, there have been reports of eerie events that almost signal some sort of divine interception that either approve or disprove the development, leaving experts and rabbis scratching their heads. Conspiracy theorists in the Middle East have recently drawn attention to remarkable events that many believe may be connected to biblical prophecies. The first event that has captured the interest of many involves the birth of a red cow in Israel after a span of 2,000 years. Both Christianity and Judaism attach significance to this red cow in relation to the last days. In Jewish tradition, the construction of the Third Temple in Jerusalem is said to be preceded by the birth and sacrifice of a red cow. According to Orthodox Judaism, the rebuilding of this temple signifies the imminent arrival of the Jewish Messiah. Expert rabbis thoroughly examined the cow, confirming it as a viable candidate for the biblical red cow. If this is a divine interception, it certainly approves the restoration of the Third Temple. The next recent mind-boggling event was definitely unexpected. Contrary to expectations, life has been discovered in the sinkholes of the Dead Sea, an environment known for its extreme salinity that typically cannot sustain life. The Dead Sea, with approximately 37% salt content, is 10 times saltier than the ocean. This discovery aligns with a prophecy from the New Testament, where Ezekiel foretells that the Dead Sea will contain life in it at the end of days. Also, adding to the intrigue, reports surfaced of a snake slithering out of the stones of the Western Wall, startling worshippers. Videos released by the Western Wall Heritage Foundation depicted the reptile emerging from a wall hole and carrying a dove, symbolizing dangerous times as described in the Book of Genesis. This one definitely has fingers crossed and tongues tied as it sends a message with mixed signals. Lastly, a pulsating orb of light was seen hovering above the dome of the rock. In the early hours of a Saturday morning in Jerusalem, a shining ball of light was captured on film, hovering above the dome of the rock. This footage, now widely circulated on the internet, has sparked debates among UFO enthusiasts, leaving many questioning the existence of extraterrestrial life. The significance of this sighting lies not only in the peculiar nature of the object, but also in the multiple angles from which its pictures and footage were captured, making it harder to dismiss as a mere illusion. The video shows a pulsating orb descending and hovering above the historic shrine before abruptly shooting up into the night sky at a speed that would be fatal for earthly beings. The intrigue deepens as the orb descends once more and then disappears, leaving viewers and experts puzzled. Former Ministry of Defense UFO investigator Nick Pope weighed in on the matter, acknowledging the potential significance of the footage. Pope remarked that if the videos are authentic, they could be some of the most incredible ever shot, pushing the boundaries of what we know about technology and aerial capabilities. Some individuals believe that these incidents likely indicate the fulfillment of the prophecy of the coming of the Messiah. However, researchers caution against wild speculations, urging people to take a measured view. While these events have captured the imagination of conspiracy theorists, it's essential to approach them with a rational perspective. According to scholars and religious pundits, the concept of an impending apocalypse remains a topic of debate. The events mentioned above, while intriguing, should be interpreted with caution. It is crucial to distinguish between symbolic interpretations and concrete evidence, recognizing that prophecies often evoke varied interpretations among different religious and scholarly circles. We have come to the end of the video. Go ahead and share your thoughts in the comment section about the building of the Third Temple of Jerusalem and how the mysterious events might affect the development. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to more interesting videos like this. Thanks for watching till the end.